All right, so welcome in everyone. Thank you for joining us this evening. My name is Aidan, and I'm a PhD candidate at the University of Houston. Tonight I'm joined by Yagmur Yegin. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. I don't know if you want to correct me, Yagmur, is that good? And also Thanh Nguyen, who um, the purpose of this event tonight is kind of shed some light on what opportunities arise when you get a master's degree or a PhD, right? When you go beyond the bachelor's degree, what happens when you add a master's or an MS or a PhD right behind your name? And I think specifically for tonight, I think one of the things that we really want to hone in on is that it's primarily targeted towards primarily undergraduate institutions, right? So myself and the two other panelists came from primarily undergraduate institutes. And while not always the case, but sometimes it's hard to imagine what you could actually accomplish and what potential is out there when you go beyond the bachelor's degree. And so this evening, this is, I'm going to share just a few quick facts about like the pros and cons of both a bachelor's degree, but also like more PhD. Um, but also we're going to get into kind of a Q&A discussion about those scenarios. And tonight it's going to be a very laid back discussion. This is not about what is right and what's wrong, but rather just to provide enough information for you to make a more informed decision about whether or not graduate school is right for you. And again, the potential that comes with a PhD. So just a few very like quick facts, right? If we're kind of looking at this from a glance, right? If you're if you're getting your undergraduate degree, and you finish with a bachelor's, chemistry, biochemistry in general, a lot of the jobs that are available to you are kind of in the quality control chemist, analytical testing, environmental testing, application and sales support. But careers that would be rather hard to obtain just with a bachelor's degree that become more available if with a PhD are things like an R&D scientist, right? So you're kind of leading research teams and project leads on, whether you're in med chem or like in polymer science and making plastics. Obviously, well, actually, maybe not obvious, but you can become a principal investigator at an academic institute, right? So you can go on to become a professor. You're in the kind of the process and development in med chem, maybe things that you didn't even know were available, like computational chemistry. The most easiest example would be, you could study like binding affinity of target drugs or active pharmaceutical ingredients for diseases. So you can get hired on for like in a pharmaceutical company to do that. And in a few careers that you probably wouldn't imagine are in consulting and business, right? So a lot of entrepreneurs, they want to do a startup, but they don't understand any of the science behind it. So you need like an advanced degree to really understand that science, right? And so you can go on to become a chief science officer. That would be like a really far down the line, but that's kind of like what would be available to you. But also patent agents, right? So if you're in intellectual property and you want to become a patent agent, you need an advanced degree in chemistry to, help intellectual property, right? So if you have a company that has intellectual property, you need a patent agent with an advanced degree to read your patents and to see if they can become publishable. An extension to that would be like a patent attorney. Now you would need a JD for that, but these are just things that would open up to you if you had a PhD. So some of the median salary. So again, you could actually find a lot of this information on the resource down at the bottom, but the median salary for a chemist as of May 2024 is about 84,000. And as a full-time chemist for a PhD is about 135,000 median pay. I should have looked up the starting pay. I actually don't know the average starting pay for a PhD chemist. But you can see the numbers right there. It's about 165,000 if you're in industry. Obviously, like that will go up as you spend more time in, but it's about 90,000 for academia. So some of the job outlooks, right? So over the next few years, what's the job outlook like? So generally speaking, in the life, physical, and social sciences, there's a faster growth for bachelor's degree. And as a complement to that, if you're a PhD, there's very low, very, very low unemployment for PhDs, right? Um, I mean, I personally would even go as far as say if you have a PhD, it would be almost nearly impossible to not find a job, especially here in Houston. I mean, when we think about plastic and polymer science, Dow, DuPont, I mean, how many oil and gas companies are just in Houston? There's plenty of work to be found here. Um, the time to degree, right? So obviously for a bachelor's degree, it's 4 years. The median time for a degree in chemistry and biochemistry is approximately 6 years, but in my experience, it's been more towards lean towards 5 years. So for me, it's going to be 5 years. I don't know if that's true in the biochemistry sphere, but 5 to 6 years is about the median. So funding, right? So obviously, if you have a bachelor's degree, it's whatever your salary is. But probably a fact that you didn't know about graduate school is that tuition is remitted, right? So I I don't even know of one example, at least within chemistry, where you have to pay out of pocket for tuition. The idea is that the university would pay for your tuition and also on top of that give you approximately a $28,000 a year stipend for you to, live and well, to live, but also to do research on behalf of the university, right? So you don't you don't get any new debt from graduate school by pursuing a PhD in chemistry. So the debt at finish, right? This will kind of vary, but obviously whatever your student loans are at the end of the bachelor's degree, like that's what you owe. And again, there is no new debt that's accumulated during graduate school. It's also probably worth mentioning that if you have any government loans from undergrad, while you are pursuing your graduate degree, you don't owe any interest on those. I don't know if that'll change. I know that's what it currently is right now, that you don't owe any interest or you don't owe any payments on government loans, but that's something to keep in mind. And then finally, right, so who thrives in these? So generally speaking, if you're kind of a hands-on that if you're like a hands-on person that you want to earn now and you want to learn on the job, that's generally like like if you have a bachelor's degree, that's fine. You can just take up a job and you'll learn on the job. But if you're kind of more interested in the more fundamental science and you like designing experiments and even like to become a good communicator, a PhD might be for you. So this is some of the quick facts. If people are, I'll provide these slides if anyone is interested. And then before we switch over to the Q&A, I'm going to go over like a few checklists, like a checklist for you to consider if you want to go do a PhD. Now, right now, these are kind of rhetorical questions, right? But if we want to return this, we can, but like things that you should consider, right? So for your career goals, right? So, do you want to lead research projects and create new knowledge, right? That would be kind of leaning towards the PhD. Or would you like to apply existing knowledge in industry, quality assurance, and production, right? That would be perfectly fine with a bachelor's degree. All the roles that you see on Indeed and LinkedIn, do they have explicitly credentially graded or gated? Like, do you need a PhD to have those positions, right? If you're kind of looking at the job description and they require a PhD, well, then you need a PhD. But if you see positions on Indeed or any other, job hiring website that don't require a PhD, then, you can take up that position. And then, yeah, the last one is like, could your goals be met with just a bachelor's degree, right? Kind of the second pillar, I would say, is, the learning and work style, right? So do um do you enjoy like long-term open-ended projects with uncertain outcomes, right? So in a PhD, you will come across a lot of failed experiments. So are you okay with the mindset that a lot of these things are going to fail? Do you like reading, writing, presenting, and publishing, or do you prefer the bench work, right? If you like to read and write and look at like scientific literature, that's kind of leaning more towards a PhD. And then, are you motivated by deep dives into a narrow research field, or do you prefer a variety and breadth of tax? The third one's kind of like this lifestyle and finances, right? So are you comfortable living on a stipend right around $30,000 a year for 5 to 6 years? right? So how does delaying that full-time earnings impact your personal or family goals, right? Again, do you want to earn that salary now, or can you hold off for 5, 6 years with potential higher earnings at the end of that? And then, would you prefer a structured 9 to 5, which you'd find in industry, or do you kind of like an open, fluid, unpredictable schedule of graduate school? And then finally, can you handle several years? Like, I kind of touched on this earlier, but like, several years of like failed experiments, revisions, and slow progress without losing motivation, right? If you're going to do a PhD, there's going to be a lot of sludge work, and it's not going to come easy at times. And so, do you have the mental fortitude to like keep going, right? And you might not have that now, but part of it is like growing that part of the brain as well, right? Building that mental fortitude. Do you enjoy mentoring and teaching, right? So a part of being a graduate student is you'll often be obligated to teach and mentor young, like undergraduates, right? So do you like teaching and mentoring? And, if you start working now, if you like finished a bachelor's degree and you want to go into the workforce, right? Do you see a clear path later to go to graduate school, right? Because once you start earning that salary, once you start earning that 80K, salary, it'll be very hard to like go back to school, right? So this is something that you want to consider and think about when you finish your bachelor's degree. So with this in mind, again, these are kind of rhetorical questions. I think at this point, this is kind of the primer into what we want to discuss tonight. But I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and shift it over to really our Q&A session, and let's just have a discussion about graduate school. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen. And I guess at this point too, if Thanh and Yagmur, you guys want to introduce yourself as well, so everyone can kind of get to know you a bit, and then we'll kind of kick it off with the Q&A.
Thank you so much, Aidan. So it was really good slides, so I'm happy you shared it with us. I'm Yagmur, and I'm also living in Houston, Texas. I did my undergrad in my home country in Turkey, and I got my bachelor's in food engineering, not in chemistry. So the thing is, like, when I was choosing my major, I really wanted to be an engineer, and also I really like agriculture and chemistry and also food. So I thought like food engineering was the perfect major at that time. And then I came to United States and I did my master's and PhD at Texas A&M University. My master's coming from a food engineering program in biological and agricultural engineering department. And for my PhD, I work in also at Texas A&M University, but this time I work with different professors because I wanted to do more like interdisciplinary research. So I had like one professor in food science and technology, and the other professor was in chemical engineering, and I had a chance to spend my time mostly in chemical engineering department. So I had a chance to learn like more like chemistry and like material science in addition to like food science research. And right after my PhD, I joined MIT as a postdoc. And I did my postdoc in civil and environmental engineering department, and it was more like related to advanced biopolymers. I use them in for the purpose of like sustainability, like replacing microplastics with the biodegradable materials, and also like using these biodegradable polymers as like food surface sanitizers and also like food surface coatings to extend the food shelf life and also the decrease the foodborne pathogens during that time. And right after that, I directly joined industry. So right now I'm working as a research engineer in Houston, Texas.
So hi, my name is Thanh. I'm currently a second year graduate student calling you from University of Texas from Austin. I am a member of the Brodbelt lab. So in our lab, we focusing more on developing methods related to mass spectrometry. And currently I'm working on different projects that focusing on using mass spectrometry on therapeutic RNAs. So my journey is a little bit different because I went right from undergrad to grad school, and I'm also currently new in the process of going through grad school. I'm only second years. But the reason why I choose grad school because I know that I love doing the lab work. I love doing research, and when I was in undergrad, I just wanted to see if it's a great fit for me. And I reached out to Dr. Chandra, and she's a great mentor. And she was like, "Have you think about grad school? Maybe it's a great fit for you." And I was looking into that. And thank you to Dr. Chandra. That's why I'm here today because she reached out to my PI currently, and then get it set up, and then they open application for me, and now I'm here. I know that grad school is really hard, but since I'm also early, there's a lot of failure, like Aidan already mentioned. And I'm currently also going through my qualifying exam, so it's very stressful. But what I would say it's rewarding in terms of I just know that this is what I wanted to do and I still choosing it. Like there's no regret, but also I know that there are things that the lab work that I do and the hours that I do, it just feel rewarding knowing that there's a failure, but you kind of learn throughout the process, which is one of the things that I really like about grad school currently.
I also just realized I never explained what I did. So I'm a fourth year grad student at the University of Houston. Um, been here since 2021. I graduated from actually Widener University, which is about 20 minutes south of Philadelphia. So I'm go birds till I die, and no one can make me, I'm unapologetic about it. Um, but I'm in Professor Brad Carrow's lab at the University of Houston, and we're broadly interested in organometallic chemistry, organometallic catalysis. So making catalysts that would be relevant for pharmaceutical sciences, right, to make drugs, but also polymer scientists, right? So trying to make polymers that are recyclable, and thinking about how to make a more circular closed loop system for polymers. So that's what I do. I guess at that point, now we'll kind of open it up to Q&A. Might be, I don't know if we have, if anyone has some questions, you can type them in the chat. I promise we won't bite. But we kind of want to keep this laid back. Like we're not here to, we're here to like, bust the myths of like graduate school.
So since there's only 25 people on the call, like go ahead and just, if you can just unmute yourself and ask a question, or if you'd rather do it over chat, then we can handle it that way. So either way. All right, Nick, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
I guess this could be a question that anyone using grad school or finished grad school answer, but like, how did y'all handle like the several years of like failed experiments, revision, and slow progress without like losing that motivation? Like, what did y'all do, or what kept y'all going?
I think I can answer that as a person who got her PhD already. So it is kind of like, I really like this question because it's not like smooth process, I mean, this is really healthy. You start thinking about that. If you think about like, it will be so smooth, there will not be any problem. It is not healthy thinking. So this is really healthy. You are thinking like, what am I going to do if there is like obstacles or failures or slow down? So my advice for that, like it is a very normal process. This is how it makes you, like stronger during the process. And because, like you will be stuck in your research or in your other parts of your research, but the problem is like, you need to develop some other skills, like asking for help, looking for resources, like finding your own support system. It can be your mentors, it can be your PI, it can be your family members. You need to have a good support system. So to get like more like, how can I say, resilience and persistence during the process. So this is really good, actually. This is one of the things like I think grad school gives you as a huge skill. You will be using it just not just for your professional life and also for your personal life too. So thanks for the question. So I think it was a really good question.
Yeah, something to add to that is that one of my mantras that I've been saying over the last like literally 4 years is that, you know, bad science doesn't make you a bad person, right? The science is gonna do what the science is gonna do. That's not gonna change your character, right? And sometimes it's really hard to accept that because sometimes you see like colleagues, they get all this recognition. Oh my God, they're the Nobel Prize. Like they have all these publications. Like, look at me, like I have nothing. But it's not really, as soon as you accept that like bad science doesn't make you a bad person, like it really changes your outlook on it. But I would say like a piece of practical advice too is like make sure you surround yourself with a good advisor and lab mates. Like if the lab environment is super competitive, then well, of course, like you're never going to escape this competitive nature of it. Are the students like actually helpful to one another, or are they just trying to like one up one another? And for the PI, are they only interested in the vanity and the recognition, or are they actually spending time with you individually to like fix the science, right? And thinking about the fundamental questions that you're. So a practical advice, be very careful about who you select as your advisor and your lab mates. From a glance and just way of life thinking is bad, bad science doesn't make you a bad person.
And another thing I want to add is like, when you said like the other people get recognition, like maybe they publish their papers, but you're stuck in your research process, right? Let's say some people I see like they are really hardworking people and they don't get any single result to put in their thesis for 3 years, 4 years. I have seen these type of people. But the thing is like thinking that your process is like unique. So you shouldn't be comparing yourself with other people because you are a different person, you are working in a different professor, also you are working in a different project. So definitely the most important thing you will do during your process is like not comparing yourself with other people. Because while other people may be like seen like more like recognized, they are getting more awards or something, recognition, something like that. Maybe you stuck for a while, but nobody knows like after you pass this barrier, you will be maybe much more successful compared to other people. So like definitely everybody's journey is different. So definitely do not compare yourself.
Yeah, I agree. And also just going off of that, I feel like for the like in grad school, you go through so many failures, you kind of learn how to deal with them. And also the process is like as you fail, you kind of learn a new thing. And then the next project that you picked up, you kind of fail in like a different way. And then you learn how to deal with new problem each time. And so each time it's sort of like a process where you accumulate your knowledge throughout grad school. And I think that's very important for, later on when you're graduating, that's what they're looking for is also your experience and your knowledge that you build up in grad school, not just the fact that, oh, this is my achievement. It's just the PhD, the certificate or whatever. It's also more like the knowledge that you obtain throughout the years that you're in grad school.
All right, Samantha, you want to go ahead and unmute yourself?
Okay. What was your process that you went through of finding your area of interest for your PhD research? Did you know directly coming into graduate school, like kind of if you want to do polymer chemistry or any other field, or was it more of like you looked around and then found your area of interest, your question of interest, the lab that you wanted to join?
I can answer that because I went through like master's degree before my PhD. So I know it is different in every country. Like in United States, you don't have to have a master's to be able to go to a PhD, right? You can directly start your PhD, but I started my master's degree first and I got my master's and then I switched to another professor for my PhD. So in my case, like, I think having, I didn't know anyone, right? Because I got my undergrad degree in my home country. I didn't have a chance to talk to any grad school students. I didn't have a chance to meet any professors in person or visit their labs. So it is just like kind of applying, like kind of gambling, you know, like you just see their websites and you decide for applying to the programs and also working with the professors. So I'm really happy I had a chance to do my master's, because at least I learned school, I learned other people. And like during my master's, I decided like if I want to do my PhD here, or if I want to work with this professor, or if I want to continue with this type of projects. So like master's was just like a completely different work I did. And during that time, I developed an idea like, I want to do this for my PhD. So for me, in my case, like doing master's was like a blessing. It was like a very good opportunity, because like if I started a PhD directly without knowing the professor, without knowing the topics I'm going to work on, I could be wasting so much more time.
Yeah, and for me, the way I pick my PI or the field that I'm in for grad school is because I kind of like tour UT, and then you kind of have like a welcoming week where you sometime for grad school you do rotation before you choose the lab. So you get to talk to the student in the lab, the PI, kind of do rotation, shadowing them on the project. And so you kind of see the workflow and their schedule, and you pick it from there to see which one fit you the most, which lab you think you're going to be the most successful. So for me, I sort of talking to people throughout like the welcoming week, the orientation, and then you find out what lab you feel like you fit in the most. And also I was debating between two labs. One is very close to what I was doing for undergrad, and then one is completely different, which is the lab that I'm doing now. It's very heavily method development. So in my head, I was just thinking, what skill do I want to learn in grad school now? I already have this skill from undergrad, and so now I kind of want to branch out, which is like the specialty that I could get from grad school that I won't get after I graduating. And that's why I decided to choose the lab that fit me the most.
Yeah, real quick, I think a good place to get started too is honestly, even before you think about the science, where do you want to live for 5 years, right? Like, do you want to go to University of Minnesota where it's like -20 in the winter? Do you want to go to California, like Caltech, and where the cost of living is astronomical, right? So these are like I would say geographically, think about cities you'd want to live in, like, where, for 5 years. And then once you kind of have a geography, then like I think it's easy to just like pick out schools from such and such cities, and then take a look at like buzzwords, keywords like those research departments have, right? So, and then one step further would be go to research websites. Like, does the PI you're looking at have a nice website, or do they even have one? If they don't have a nice website, I mean, I concede and appreciate that there are a lot of like investigators that are state-of-the-art scientists but haven't touched a website since the 1980s. But like if they don't have a good website, that's like a very small indication of like, okay, so these are just like little things that you could do surfing the web, right? But yeah, definitely geography, I would say, is like absolute ground one. Where do you want to live for 5 years?
I'm gonna call on well, Tatiana, I think you had your hand up first, and then I think you're back on.
Yeah, sorry, I lost Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
So my question is, because I know picking your topic is important in picking, but what qualities do you look for in a PI and in your lab mates that would make you sure that you're okay to spend the next 5 years with these people?
I think I can go ahead. And for example, when I was doing my master's degree, I got one class with one of the professors. Like it was about food microbiology. I was taking that class. So I really like him. I already know like he's like a nice person. And then, you know, like I was deciding like I want to do something more interdisciplinary, and I start searching for like who is the people he's working with in the school, who is the other professors or lab he's spending time. So I found a nice collaboration between him and also another professor. And my main advice, like not necessarily I did, even though I didn't do, like I spent my time in very nice professors and with very, very nice lab mates. And my recommendation would be like, go ahead and talk to the lab members. See the grad students, like how, I mean, not just like undergrad students, like how they feel when they listen to class, but just go ahead and talk to their grad students. How do you see, like you will get the idea from the energy, you know, like if they seem like happy or unhappy, just stressed out, like, or maybe they look like unhappy from the place they are, and you will have an idea. And also like maybe request from the professor to visit the lab. You will see the lab, like what type of research they do. Like, do you really like what they do? You know, like maybe you will say, oh, I don't want to be in that lab like next 5-6 years for my PhD. So this is really helpful. And ask for the students, you know, like what they are doing for their research. Does it sound interesting? Are you interested in like doing something in that area? So I think it will be very useful to connecting with people.
Yeah, for me it's similar, but also when I was choosing PI, I need to choose the PI that kind of have similar work schedule and work ethics like I do. For example, my PI is very hands-off, which I like. I know that a lot of the grad school PI could be very hands-on, and that some people might prefer because that sort of give them more structure to work with, versus me, I like to be more independent in the lab, and that's sort of a big factor for me. And when I choose my PI, she's completely hands-off, you do all the work, and then the mentorship coming a lot from the older student in the lab, which is also another thing that you need to look for. If you join a lab where the mentorship wasn't as good coming from older student, you might have a hard time because they technically your sibling. You go to work and you see them every day, sometime on the weekend, sometime throughout, like from 9 to 5 or even after 5. So there's a lot that you need to consider, like whether you get along with them at work, outside of work. Do you feel like they sort of like your supporting system if you moving far away from home? They are like your sibling. So if you need help, you usually reach out to them. And so if you join a lab where people are not really helpful or they're not open to mentoring you, giving you advice, that's a red flag that I usually look for as well.
Yeah, I think those are both great answers. The only thing I would add is like, just by being in this meeting, you're probably already observant, right? You wouldn't be here if you actually weren't really considering graduate school. So I would say I would trust your judgment being around the graduate students. They'll tell you the straight up what like the environment's like. Like they're not gonna lie to you. Like, do they like being there for 5 years? They'll tell you straight up. Do you get the like would you get the vibe that they're trying to compete with one another, or is the group dynamic actually pretty like flourishing? When you ask them questions about their research, are they excited to speak about it? Right. So I think you can trust your judgment, honestly. For the professor side, listen, the professors are going to tell you what you want to hear. Like they're always excited to talk about their research, right? They love it. And they're going to love talking about their research. But it's also, I think it's very important. Like, you don't have to feel insecure about being transparent with them. Like, okay, like how many hours do you expect me to be in lab? Like, what is it? 60 hours, like 40 hours? Like, they'll just tell you. How many vacation days do you get? Like, do I have 20 days of non-negotiable like days off? Do I have to come in on Saturdays, right? I know people that have to that have group meeting on Saturdays, right? So they have to go in. So you can ask them straight up. You can ask the advisor like these straight up questions. One last thing is like, do I get paid? Like, do I have to TA? What's the funding like? Are the PIs worried about their funding, right? Do they secure grants, right? So these are questions that you can ask. You don't have to feel insecure about asking them, right? They're not anything is is fair game. So
We'll move on to Delano.
First, thank you guys so much for being here tonight, to our three panelists. Thank you for carving out the time to be here, and thank you to the ACS for putting this on. My question is around like the life of a PhD student. I feel we can look up, you know, the curriculum and the didactics and clinical aspect of med school, or the really, really structured aspect of master's programs. But it seems when you go to look at PhD programs, it's very elusive, and they're like, oh, you could do maybe this or maybe this. From your experience, what would our life look like in a PhD program? Is there coursework? Is there teaching that's been mentioned? What does that look like? Just kind of the general aspect of that.
I believe it can be a combination of so many other things, you know, like, for example, for your projects, maybe the professor has some funding for the specific project, right? So maybe you don't have so much freedom to choose what you want to do or not. So maybe the professor will give you that project to work on. Or maybe you are like self-funded, like self-sponsored. You have a sponsor. Maybe you have more freedom to choose what you want to do. Of course, with the discussing with your professor, with your PI. And like, it depends on also the department, and also it depends on the professors. Let's say from my PhD, nobody was teaching, nobody was TAing. We were like very much like research focused lab. So we were working a lot, like even like in spring breaks, like during the weekends. But everyone was like super helpful and volunteer. We were like even creating sometimes our own projects. Like so many side projects came from the collaboration and nice friendly environment in the lab. So it is also your luck, you know, like if you find like nice lab members you get along with and they help you, they take care of you. Let's say when I was having deadlines, like so many of my lab members were coming all together to help me to finish this. You know, okay, let me do this kind of little things for you, you know, like little things, but it adds up like a huge help. Like maybe 1 hour donation from like like 5 lab members can be saving you like 5-10 hours, right? To complete something. And like, we were like kind of also like mentoring each other. Like when we have a question or problem, we were discussing in detail. And like you can learn from your lab members, not just from your PI. And hopefully you have like good relationship with your lab members. So like, because your PI is, I always say like your PI is just one person, but your lab members may be like 10 people. They are also will be your nice colleagues. They will be going all over, you know, like they might be a professors, they might work in the industry and become like very high level leaders in future. So it is very important to look for the right lab for your personality, you know. For example, if you are like 9 to 5 person, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. and you definitely don't want to work during the weekend, look for a professor fits in your work style, right? But if you are kind of like loving to work independently, maybe you don't want to come during the day, maybe in the afternoon you want to start and leave the lab in the late night. So it all depends. So definitely observe the people in the lab and also observe the professor and ask all kinds of questions you have. And I recommend like not being shy or not being hesitant, you know, like for the questions you have. Like be honest and think about yourself, like what you like and what you definitely don't like.
yeah, so for kind of like the timeline, Thanh could probably I mean, they both can weigh in here. At least for chemistry, like the first year is gonna be classes. Like for me, it was three courses in the fall semester, 3 courses in the spring. Whatever topics, some of them are required, and then there's like, you know, or it's like there's like three or four of them were like required, and the other 2 are kind of like pick your own adventure. That's like the first academic year, and more often than not, professors won't require you to do academic research at the time. It'll just be doing your academics, taking your exams, and also probably TAing as well. So you'll TA and take classes. Following that first academic year, once the classes are finished, then you're on board full research. At that point, so entering the summer going into your second academic year. Again, yeah, that's going to be full research. And then a year after that, so it's all research. You might have to TA, depends on the funding. So either TA or RA. But then you have your qualifying exam. Someone has different universities have different names for it, but you got to take an exam that basically making sure that you're on the right track. That'll occur 1 year, I guess the beginning of your third year, I think. So the beginning of your third academic year, you'll take your qualifying exam. And then different universities at that point will have different flavors, but I think generally speaking, you'll have a fifth academic year kind of like research talk in front of the department, and then finally obviously your dissertation. And that's pretty much the timeline for most universities. Sprinkle in some TA if you have to TA, but that's something you can ask your potential advisors, like, are they on TA or do they have research funding? I don't know if UT Austin's different on.
Yeah, it's very similar, I think. And also just one point that I want to point out, it's like just from the previous questions too, when you pick your PI, you also need to look into the PI. Are they funded well? So then if they're more funded, you don't have to TA every year when you're doing your grad school. I know that some group, they have to TA more or less, depends on the funding that your PI have. And that's the one thing that I think it's also important, because when you TA, you kind of take a big time away from doing your personal research or the research that would kind of progressing you towards graduating. So that's like the most important part. But I think for us, at least at UT for chemistry, it's similar, Aidan. It just, we take classes and then you kind of expecting to TA, it depends. And then you take your fall exam. And after that, most of the group here, we took off TA very quickly. And then we just sort of doing our research. But yeah.
One quick finer point, when we say qualifying exams, we don't mean a literal test. Like, we literally mean like you're in a 45-minute presentation with 4 like professors. So it's not a written test. Like, you will be tested on your background knowledge of your field and the actual progress you've made in approximately a year and a half of research. Are you a capable scientist, chemist? It's kind of what they're looking for. Like, are you capable?
And I'll say this, it hasn't changed much in 25 years.
Yep.
So the timeline you guys described is what I went through at Texas A&M, doing my PhD as well. So yeah, it seems to be very standard for chemistry PhDs. Lynn.
So my question was more geared towards Dr. Yegin, because I know that you did your master's before your PhD. Other than finding people that you wanted to work with, what was your biggest takeaway of doing your master's before getting into your PhD?
Thanks for the question. The first thing is, like, in master's, I didn't bring my research idea. My professor had a research idea for me and give it to me. Okay, so like I had less freedom on the research. I even didn't know that, like, what is research? Because in undergrad, I didn't have a chance to be in the lab or in any kind of lab and doing any kind of research. I know, like, some people in United States so lucky, even in high school, people may do like some research with some universities, right? So like when I was doing my master's, I was just doing what I was told to do, trying to read the papers, trying to understand what doing research means, how to do experiments, how to analyze my data. So this is the things I have been doing during my master's. And even though I joined like conferences and I published my paper. But for my PhD, I have been thinking, like, do I want to do like something like that? Or do I want to do like something else? Or do I want to work with the same professor during my PhD? So these are the questions I was already asking to myself. You know, like, I have been observing my environment. But I really know that, like, during my PhD, I want to do something more like interdisciplinary. Like, I don't want to be doing like pure food science, food engineering related research. I want to add like something more like material science and chemistry. So that's why the main reason I work with the 2 professors, and I spend majority of my time in chemical engineering department. It paid off very much, actually. Like, if I have been doing like straightforward, just like food, like my undergrad, my master's and PhD, I believe I wouldn't be that much having that much success I had in my PhD. Like, I definitely recommend people to look for other departments, other researchers, not just the exact same department you get your undergrad or master's. Look for other people. Maybe you are more interested in like different departments, different research, right? Or maybe you want to have like co-advisor and add something for your research, maybe staying in your same home department, but adding some others from the other departments. So I think it was like the biggest luck in my career to have my PhD in such a nice work environment, and also in such a like exciting research projects. So it definitely shaped my whole career. So definitely be careful. You do not jump on things like, oh, there is a funding for this professor, I want to do my PhD. There is no such a thing like that. Just look for yourself first. So like, maybe it is suitable for me, but maybe it is not suitable for other person, right? So there is no right or wrong answer for that. So start thinking like what you want to do. Maybe start reading some of the papers if you are interested in that type of research. So I highly recommend just like listening yourself.
I think we only have about 8 minutes left. So Sophia and then Ryan.
Great. Hi guys. Hope y'all having a good night. Thank you for talking to us. My question is, based on the research itself and the PhD itself, how much independent versus collaboration would you expect to do in a research? And does it depend on the research and type of research you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, it really just depends on the type of research you're doing. I mean, like some like tangible examples would be like, let's say you like doing medicinal chemistry, right? You like thinking about how to make active pharmaceutical ingredients. And so from a chemistry perspective, you got to make the compounds, but you're not really responsible for doing the biological assays, right? So at least at University of, like, example would be at the University of Houston, there's a lot of med chemists, right? So they'll make the active pharmaceutical ingredients, or they'll make target compounds, and then they'll ship it off to the Texas Medical Center, right? All the dozens of colleges over at the Texas Medical Center, where they'll start doing the biological assays, right? So that would kind of be a very practical example. I'm trying to think of other, I mean, if you're very like personable, I could say like collaboration, like let's say you have a piece of equipment that you don't have in your own research lab, but you're very sociable and personable and you have friends in other labs, like you can just go ask to use their equipment, you know? So, you know, if you kind of carry yourself well, you would have opportunities to, like, you know, to use equipment of other labs at your department, or even just, you know, other universities too, for that matter. But
I believe like PhD is like more about, like, when I hear someone has a PhD, it means like they are like independent researchers. So it means that like they have the ability and capability to work by themselves and start the project and finish the project, right? Because you will be doing everything by yourself, right? But it doesn't mean that you don't collaborate. Actually, you collaborate with people. It can be like from your lab members, it can be from different department, professors, students, even it can be from industry. Like they may ask, like, we want to collaborate with your lab for this specific project, and they may give you like some small projects to complete. So I think it is more important to be able to like, being able to, I think it is like strong independent researcher, having PhD, and also like being able to collaborate when needed. This is the, I think, very important skills you have to be developing during your PhD.
Okay, Ryan.
Hi, my question is, how has your undergraduate research prepared you for your PhD journey? And are there any misconceptions that you had before going to grad school?
I love this question. I love it. No, actually, Thanh, you go ahead. Thanh, you go ahead first. Go for it.
I also love this question a lot. Because then I can give credit to Dr. Chandra again. But honestly, I feel like it prepared me very well. But also, the one thing I would say is that when you go into a lab, the specific skill that you're going to learn, somehow it would always going to be different from your undergrad study regardless. It depends on your field. But for me, I feel like what get me prepared is my attitude and also my work ethics in general that I take away from grad school, because I do completely different things. So this could be just my personal experience. But I feel like the misconception is like, oh, what if I don't know this that they already did? And then you kind of look on their website and you like, oh, I want to join this lab. But they do, for me, I didn't do any instrumentation a lot. And then I joined an instrumentation lab and I was very nervous about, oh, what if I'm not experienced enough? I don't know anything. But then once I joined the lab, you kind of learn it on the job a lot. It depends on your attitude, because I think if you go into grad school and you're like, this is the field that I want to be in and I'm willing to learn, and my PI and the oldest student in the lab provide great mentorship, that's exactly what you're going to get when you get to grad school. So just because you didn't have a lot of experience that's close to what you get in grad school, doesn't mean that you're not going to be able to join the lab that you're interested in.
Yeah, in my undergraduate research, I'm very grateful for my undergraduate research. And undergraduate research is like an opportunity for you to like, I mean, just to get your feet wet, just get in the lab and like learn and just like have fun, right? I mean, you're doing fundamental research, and it's just for you to familiarize yourself with the lab. This is an anecdotal personal story. I'm not saying this for anyone else, but I'll always remember graduating with my degree in chemistry, and then it's an awesome feeling, and then getting to grad school, and it's the humbling feeling that actually I don't know anything yet. Like it's both scary, but also like really, it's scary because you think you know everything, and then all of a sudden you're getting jumped, you're like just off the abyss, like you actually know nothing. So the misconception is that feeling like you know everything at graduation for your bachelor's, but the thirst for more knowledge is what is exciting about graduate school. And also, like when you're in the graduate school, like the feeling of like you have to know all the answers, like literally you're in school, like you're here to learn these things, right? You're here, like if you don't have the answers, you go talk to your advisor and your lab mates, right? You don't have to have all the answers. That was like one of the biggest things I learned personally. It was like feeling like I had to know the answer, like, and feeling like I'm not supposed to be here. That's also a big thing too. We probably should have talked about it, honestly. It was the what's the syndrome where it's like you feel like you shouldn't be here?
Imposter
syndrome. Yeah. I couldn't think of the word, but that's exactly it, right? Everyone here you have a place to belong. Like you're supposed to be, don't get it twisted, you're supposed to be learning on this journey. So just be humble and knowing that there's actually a lot more knowledge out there, I guess, is one of the biggest misconceptions about graduate school.
That's a great note to end on, right? Imposter syndrome.
Maybe I can say a few words for my experience. Like in my undergrad, I didn't have a chance to work on like specific projects. It was more like taking classes, doing my internship, and some of the like final thesis, like it was more like literature review type of research. So my experience is like, if you are not having any issue with your classes, if you are very successful, and if you are eager to learn and not scared of like getting failed and seeing everything as like an opportunity to learn something new, I think it is good for you to go to, you know, like grad school, because definitely you will not have that much problem with the classes. And also, like, if you have a nice advisor, definitely you will be learning along the way. So you don't have to know everything at the beginning. So thank you so much for invitation. I know the time is almost over. I wish you all luck. You know, also I provided my LinkedIn address to happy to connect there. Thank you so much, Richa, and everyone.
Thank you, Dr. Yegin. Thanks, Aidan, Thanh, for putting this together. I think it was really informative. Yes, please share your contact information so people can touch base with you, and then Aidan will provide the slides and we'll post those as well. So thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.